What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from the Northwoods Brewing Company, and they're out of Northwood, New Hampshire, and this is their Pumpkin Troll, and this is the 2022 release. So they're calling this one a Pumpkin IPA that comes in at 6.4% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed in time of review. This can is just under 6 weeks old. I want to give a huge thanks, shout out to a very good friend of mine and fellow beer tuber, Jesse, over at Bumpy Road Brews for hooking me up with this one. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to Jesse's channel. Jesse's a great guy. Finally got a chance to hang out with him in person recently at the 2022 BeerTuber Palooza, and he hooked me up with a couple beers. This was one of them. Go check out his channel. He does 50-point inspections, which are kind of like beer reviews. He doesn't like calling them beer reviews. They're inspections, where he kind of breaks down a beer in depth. And on top of that, he does his New Brew Monday show every Monday night at 8 p.m. He and a panel of his friends, they review brand new beers that they've never had before. So kind of like a big group beer review, basically every Monday night. So yeah, go check out Jesse. Great guy, great channel. And he knows me. Not only because this beer is called Pumpkin Troll, the name of my channel is the Beer Patrol, but he also knows I like pumpkin beers, and this is unique. Now, we're going to read the spiel on the back at the end if I remember, but this is not your typical pumpkin IPA with pumpkin spices. No, this is a normal, like, New England IPA, or I don't know if they actually call it a New England IPA, maybe a hazy, but they're brewing this one with pumpkin puree and pumpkin seeds, no pumpkin spice. So they're trying to beef up the body with that pumpkin puree and maybe add like a little nuttiness and kind of difference of flavors in comparison to the IPA base with the pumpkin seeds. So I'm really excited about this one. Most pumpkin beers I drink, they'll have pumpkin spice, even though, oh, it's a little bit of an explosion here. Hopefully we're good. Yeah, we're fine. All right, so let's give it a pour here. We're using the Elysian pumpkin glass because it's that season. Okay, so this is not, I repeat, this is not a New England style IPA base, just a regular IPA. Been corrected. All right, so do something like that so I can get my nose in there. But what I like about this is, again, they're not going for the pumpkin spice. You rarely see that. And a lot of breweries will be like, oh, this is our pumpkin beer. And they don't even put pumpkin in it. They don't brew with pumpkin. They'll just put pumpkin spices. That's like a winter warmer. Because winter warmer and pumpkin spices, they overlap with a lot of spices. If you're not putting pumpkin or something that is reminiscent of pumpkin outside of spices, that's not a pumpkin beer. It's just not. So I appreciate this take on a beer. Anyway, so this has a very murky, very fine particulate, murky, like amber, like deep orange color, maybe almost a rust color. Yeah, like a rust color. Very cool looking. It looks better when I hold it up to the camera, because like the sides from the lights are hitting it and has like a lighter orange, and then in here it has more of a copper-esque color. You hold it up to the light, yeah, it's just like straight on, like a deep amber, or like a rust color, I'd say. Has about just over a finger of this tan colored head, definitely tan, looking really creamy. Looks like a beautiful pumpkin IPA. Let's get a nose. Oh yeah, they are using, is it let me, on the back here. Yeah, it's Chinook, Cascade, and Sabro hops. Whew. So, fuck all those hops. No, actually, the Chinook and Cascade is appropriate for what they're trying to do with this beer, in my opinion. If you're trying to brew with the pumpkin puree and the seeds, those two hops are going to accentuate and kind of play off of those ingredients. The Sabro, I'm not really getting any coconut. I'm getting this real nice earthy, kind of meaty, almost nutty-esque kind of nose. A little bit of like a grapefruit rind. Definitely pine resin. But there's this substantial earthy character, like earthy nuttiness. And again, I think that's coming from the pumpkin puree and the seeds. If I didn't know those two were in there, I would just think this is kind of like an old school kind of, based on the look, I'd say like red IPA or like maybe hop forward amber ale. The nose is definitely reminding me of that. It has this nice base of this nice bready, almost like brown bread kind of base, touch of caramel. A little bit of like a honey and a toffee, but more caramel and bready. Yeah, this reminds me of it, like, honestly, Jesse sent me his own pumpkin brew, and he wanted to make a clone of Dogfish Head's pumpkin ale, which was a brown ale, pumpkin brown ale. And his didn't taste anything like Dogfish Head's, but I enjoyed it because it had this substantial earthiness. The spices weren't really punching me in the face. It was more of like the base that you get the earthiness, the pumpkin. It was different, and that's kind of what this beer smells like. So yeah, I'm saying it smells like Bumpy's homebrew that didn't hit the nail on the head when he was trying to clone something. That might sound bad, but like honestly, this is smelling pretty good. let's get into it. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again to Bumpy. This is the first pumpkin beer review of 2022 for myself. Typically, I do most of them during the 10 Days of Pumpkin at the end of October. This year starts on October 22nd, but I thought I would do this one because it's a hop-forward beer. It's relatively fresh. I didn't want to wait any longer, and why not do it for the first pumpkin review of 2022? So thanks again, Jesse. Cheers. I'll say this right now. This is a pumpkin IPA that if you enjoy old school IPAs or hop-forward beers in general, you could get behind this. Don't be afraid. If you're in Northwood, New Hampshire, and New Hampshire in general, you get your hands on this beer, and you want to try something that it has pumpkin in it, but it doesn't have the pumpkin spice, this is one I'd seek out because it's kind of what they say it is. Do I love it? Not necessarily, but I enjoy it for what it is. Another sip. That pumpkin really helping out the body. This is like higher side of medium, maybe even low full. For 6.4%, that's impressive. I feel like the pumpkin puree is doing what it should, bumping to that body. And then in addition to that, the mouthfeel has a nice crispness up front, but then it has this really nice smooth creaminess on the finish. Yeah, it's really smooth on the finish. Here's where it falls a little bit flat for me. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because this is a beer that for the body and mouthfeel alone, I'd like to drink because it's fun. It's a fun experience. The taste is just, it reminds me of so many old school, like slightly hop forward amber ales, or maybe like a red IPA, or maybe even just like an old school, like American pale ale, right? Like something like Celebration, but Celebration with a couple months of it where it's fallen off a little bit, right? That Sierra Nevada Celebration. Right at the forefront. As a toasted, we'll say not toasted, we'll say more of a white bread as opposed to brown bread in the nose. So white bread, there's caramel, a little bit of like a biscuity kind of feeling. It almost drinks like an English IPA to some degree. Maybe that's what they're kind of going for, like an English IPA. I didn't read the back. There's a spiel on it. I just saw the hops and the fact that they use pumpkin puree and seeds, but I didn't read the rest of it. So maybe that's the case. But yeah, this has an English IPA kind of feel to it. It has that, again, biscuity, bready kind of base to it, a little bit of caramel, passes through the palate. There's a big substantial earthiness that hits, a little bit of like a dirty earthiness almost. And then there's a slight nuttiness too, probably from the seeds. It has a bit of like a floral thing going on as well. This finishes semi to full on dry with a mild to moderate bitterness, more approaching moderate. Has a nice bitterness. The sweet, malt goodness up front kind of balanced out by the dryness and the bitterness. But again, they're not very substantial. Like, the flavor's not punching me in the face. There's also this underlying, like, little bit of, like, grapefruit kind of zestiness underneath the palate. It's, like, omnipresent. And then on top of that, as I took another sip, a little bit of pine resin kind of hitting the back of the tongue as well. 6.4%, really can't taste the alcohol. I would guess this is probably like 7% if I was doing blind. So I had it, well to some degree. This is a nice pumpkin IPA with no spices in it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not blowing me away. I'm not like going to scream from the rooftops. I'm not going to go nuts over this or anything. But for what they're going for, I think it's pretty good. So I'm going to lock in a rating here on the Northwoods Brewing Company Pumpkin Troll, the 2022 release. I'm going to lock this in. I can give this a, we'll go high 3.75 out of 5. We'll go 3.8 out of 5. I think that's where I land with this one personally. Again, personal preference. Now, if we're talking about a pumpkin IPA with no spices, this is probably like a 4.25, 4.3, something like that. I think they did a real good job going for what they want. It seems like, again, they wanted to go for a pumpkin IPA that gives you like an earthy kind of pumpkin feel, the seeds in there, a little nuttiness, and kind of an old school vibe to it. I thought with a Sabro, maybe they would go obviously new school, which I said hazy at the beginning. Incorrect. Price point availability, I don't know. Jesse gave this to me. So Jesse, if you want to put in the comment section, I've never heard of Northwoods, probably a small brewery in New Hampshire, and price point, I'd like to pay no more than $4 a can, so $16 a 4-pack. That would be my preference. So Jesse, post in the comment section if you can, buddy, and let me know. Now we'll read the back real quick before we shut it down. It says, sometimes even a troll
like myself, needs a quiet respite from the antics of witches and goblins during spooky season. This fresh take on pumpkin beer starts with a brilliant ruby color from the grist of pale malt and 3 British crystal malts. So yeah, kind of going, it's almost like an English IPA. Pureed pumpkin and pumpkin seeds add to the color and smoothness. Rich malty, yes. Nutty, yes. Biscuity flavors are balanced by Chinook, Cascade, and Sabro hops, which conjure citrusy notes with a hint of coconut. Didn't get any coconut. Citrusy notes, like I said, there's a lemon zest, or grapefruit zest underneath, an IPA reminiscent of the delicious crispness of New England autumn air. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of, I just did a Flannel Friday from Harpoon, kind of in that realm, you know, like one of those, you know, biscuity, bready, caramel malt kind of things going on as far as the malt character goes, with a nice, like, citrusy kind of piney bitterness. Perfect for, you know, as the weather turns cooler in the Northeast. They say New England, you know, we're here in the Northeast and it's cooler out. And yeah, really cool beer. So huge thanks to Jesse for this beer. Once again, links in the description box, or link in the description box to Jesse's channel. If you've had this one before, let me know what you think about it. Would you try this out? Here's a question. If people watch the end and you don't like pumpkin beers, would you try this one out knowing that it doesn't have pumpkin spice? Would this be something you might pick up knowing that it just has pumpkin puree and pumpkin seeds in it? Because I feel this is a beer that if you don't like pumpkin spice, if that's not your jam, but you want to try pumpkin IPA from the aspect of, oh, there's actual pumpkin in there, there's pumpkin seeds, they're like the innards of the pumpkin is actually in here, I think you would enjoy at least trying this. You might not love it. I mean, I didn't love it, but I think you'd respect what they did here. At least that would be my opinion. Anyway, thanks to Jesse. Thanks again to everybody. To the next one. Cheers.